Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome back inside The Lock Shop. Dusty and Hus back with you once again, and we are talking NFL futures. We also have a lot to recap as well. Vic Hovland, you amazing bastard. I mean, just phenomenal what he did. Would you compare him to Scotty Scheffler at Eastlake, buddy? That was phenomenal. The Hamilton Tiger Cats doing something that none of us saw coming against the BC Lions from a Lock Shop perspective. All in all, buddy, a pretty fun weekend.
Yeah, well, listen, the BC Lions are on my shit list personally. I mean, they killed a partner parlay. They killed me going 4-0 against the spread in the CFL on the weekend. I still can't believe that game, that's got to be right up there with the biggest upsets of the year in the Canadian football league.
And not just the loss, but the way it happened. It was,
dude, they were. Well, and remember our conversation. How big would the line have to get for us to not take BC? I was thinking about that as I watched this.
I thought that too.
Funny, that line didn't really move all week. Like, I'll be honest, I was out golfing with some buddies, and we ripped across to the bar. We were out at the lake, the bar across the street when we finished golfing right around the start of that game, and I checked the line again, and I'm like, this is fishy. How has this line not gotten bigger? I mean, and it'd be interesting to talk to Pat about what the amount of bet. I would imagine 90% of the bets were on BC.
Had to have been.
And 90% of the money on BC. I mean, there was nothing about Hamilton coming off that loss to the Elks would come back. But and then the Elks did salvage the weekend for us, though. A nice win. Was there rejoicing on the streets of Edmonton on Monday morning?
Buddy, I will say this. I've been doing games since, 2019. I never called a home win for Edmonton. and it was a strange feeling. Like the crowd, decent crowd too, but crowd coming to their feet in the fourth quarter to cheer this team home. I hadn't witnessed that as a play-by-play guy who's based in Edmonton. I was like, my God, like this is what it's like when people care about the Elks. Like it was something. And Trey Ford is just a treat to watch play football. So it was the weird thing is if they beat Calgary this week, they jump them in the standings. And then when they play at Commonwealth in the rematch game, there could be like 27, 28,000 there, man.
You know what? I hope it happens. I mean, as much as we out here love to give it to Chris Jones, and there's been a lot of people that have been reveling in his failures, it's this team and this market is too important to the Canadian Football League to have it in the situation that it's been in. And tell you what, it's going to be a fun season. How many of the nasties and the lock shoppers out there threw down on that Elks 25-1 prop we got on the lock shop a few weeks ago? That, my friends, is very much back in play right now.
It is live. Yeah, that was the one we had a couple of guys sign up for an account for. They're like, we got to get on this. And imagine if they're going to think betting's the easiest thing in the world if they sign up for an account and hit 25-1 for the Elks to make the postseason. But, the Hamilton win was actually big in a crossover scenario. So we'll see how it plays out. But obviously a huge weekend of the Canadian Football League. We'll set that up on Thursday, along with more NFL futures, obviously, on Wednesday. That'll be coming your way. And then, heck, week one next week, which we are very, very excited about. Hus, do you want to get into football, or do you want to quickly hit on golf too? I mean, we talked briefly about it, but
yeah, for sure. I mean, Vic, I still can't believe we got 5-1 on him to win that tournament at Coolbet. Including the staggered start. That was the best line anywhere for that. And man, he just absolutely ran away with it. And that was very, very nice. And shout out to Patty, because Patty had both Vic to win and Xander to win without strokes. And I guess he ended up halving it because they tied at 261 for the event. But it was great. And actually, I've already cashed a ticket today, Dusty, and it wasn't on Canada at the FIBA World Basketball Championships. Sam Burns plus 140 to make the Ryder Cup team. Congratulations, Sammy. He got in there. We were rapping about that. I had Feinberg on the show yesterday on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and we were talking about a bunch of different guys. And I gave a shout out to one of the Winnipeg lock shoppers, Dustin Pernitsky, who I was bringing up Sam Burns and sort of making the case for him. And he slid into my DMs going, "This Burns for sure." Give me a bunch of things. So we jumped on it. Let me just say that our pal Dustin is ready for NFL season with the nice juiced up. He also had Cam Young to not make the Ryder Cup team at plus 325. So
beautiful.
He was all over that. Listen, we may be doing the show, but we're always welcome for good tips from the Lock Shop crew.
We'll certainly take them. Certainly take them. There's no doubt about that. All right, so in today's episode of the Lock Shop, first of all, if you're watching live, feel free to chime in on YouTube and Twitter. And, of course, you can hit us up on the podcast feed. Leave us a 5-star rating over there. We'd very much appreciate it. Just search the Lock Shop on all of your podcasting platforms. The first of many NFL Futures episodes coming up here over the next 10 days with the Lock Shop. And just go to coolbet.com, click on NFL. You'll see week 1, and then you'll see the futures tab. You hop in there, and you could literally spend an entire day diving into these numbers.
You just muted yourself.
Yeah, no, I muted myself. One sec. I just have to toss that mic over on the other. Give me one sec here. I'll flip that over, and then we'll get into it because we're going to do division winners. There we go. Division winners. And we got some rushing props that we like today as well. So, Hus, we're both on the Saints at plus 120. I know you went with the Ravens. I got the Browns. We'll discuss that a little bit. A few of them, there's just, and I know in the NFL, we talk about this every year, teams coming from the basement, win a division. There's always these things that happen. But you look at it today, and like the value on the Niners is not there. You're not going to take the Chiefs at that number. You know those teams are going to get it done, but it's pretty chalky. So I guess what I'm saying is I kind of had a hard time putting together this list. Where did you come out on this?
Yeah, I was saying, by the way, is this the ultimate football guys show? Dusty with the CFL hat, Hus with the NFL hat. Fans of the league, fans of winning wagers, fans of fantasy, all of that. Yes, to your question, Dusty, you're right. I mean, let's look at the favorites here, just for folks that don't have it. The Bills are the favorites in the AFC East at plus 115. Bengals plus 140 for the North. The Jags minus 167 for the AFC South. Chiefs the same number for the AFC West that they win every year. In the NFC, you've got the Eagles at minus 159, the Lions at plus 140, Saints at plus 120, and the Niners are the biggest favorite of any team in the league to win their division at minus 182, which surprises me a little bit. But I do think that they are the best team. And, now it looks like they've got their quarterback situation somewhat figured out, and Brock Purdy's going to be able to go. I think they're in good shape. There were teams like, we're going to get to the Bills. I think the Bills have one of the toughest jobs in the league as far as holding that division down. I understand that the Bengals are plus 140 and they're the favorite, and you actually are getting a little bit of a nice number, but I think that division is going to be a dogfight right down to the final couple weeks of the season. And I'll tell you what, I could make a case for Philly, and part of it is just that I'm always assuming the worst for Dallas, but Dallas does have a lot of talent on that team, and sooner or later, despite their idiot head coach, they probably they'll win enough games just based on talent unless they get some disastrous injuries. So it was hard to jump there. Like the Lions, and you can get in and make the case for the Lions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hype for both the Lions and the Jets right now. Feinberg said this yesterday. While you could see both of these teams having breakout seasons, if there was a number on who will be the most disappointing team this year, the Lions and the Jets would probably be the favorites there as well, because if they don't have this big step up and really get it done, it will be such a disappointment, because for the first time in a long time, they have such big expectations. The North is a fascinating division to me, because certainly I think on paper it looks like the Lions to lose. That being said, they've done nothing but lose for the better part of the last 40 years.
You don't have to tell me, buddy.
There's plenty of options. We'll see if the Vikes have taken this huge step back that everyone expects. And we'll get to the NFC South in a minute with these picks. But you figure out, fire off the Lions at plus 140. This is the time. You've been waiting for this for many, many years, decades, in fact.
I just don't know how much better they have to be than they were last year to win this division. Right? They have to be marginally better. Packers aren't going to be as good. Vikings were a schedule fraud last year. The Lions were a pretty good football team last year. They need to win like 2 more games this year to probably win this division, which I think they're certainly capable of doing. They had a good 1-2 punch last year. I like this year's 1-2 punch a lot better at running back. And we know what Jared Goff could do through the air with Amon-Ra St. Brown and some of these other targets. But the combination of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery could be absolutely dynamic if they could both stay healthy. And then they improved on the defensive side of the ball as well. And just another year for that coaching staff to kind of get their hands on these guys. So look, part of me did look at, there was 2 teams that I thought about maybe taking a little bit of a shot on. One was the Vikings, just because they had 13 wins last year. They're 3-1, and it's the Lions. Vikings at 3-1, not bad. But I decided to stick with Detroit because I don't think they need to be much better than they were last year to take the division this year. The other one that it's not up here, and I would have had a hard time doing it, but the other team that I really thought about, and I think their number was 3-1 as well, was Tennessee. Now, I'm a big Jacksonville guy, Hus. You know that, like, huge Trevor Lawrence guy, but I was trying to find value in here, and it's almost that same conversation that we just had with the Lions, where I go, well, it's still the Jags. And, different coaching staff and Trevor Lawrence, love them. They should be a really good football team, but they're still Jacksonville. And Tennessee has added some pieces. They still have Derrick Henry, who I think still has some good years left. So for them at that value, I did consider that, but I liked the Saints at plus 120 more to get in on the 3 teams here. And then I wanted to take the Browns just because I think that's probably some of the best value that you could possibly find. So I did consider Minnesota and Tennessee, but I decided to put the Lions in that division at plus 140 and then just stay away from the Titans and Jags.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that because I was in a similar situation. I mean, I've included the Ravens here at plus 230. If you missed our win total spot, the Ravens have an over-under of 10.5. I don't mind them to get over, but I think if they get to 11 wins, they win that division. So the Ravens at plus 230 was, I think, just a much better usage of the bankroll, if you will. So I've got them in. The Saints pick, we're getting plus money, and I mean, I don't know what more we have to say. A rookie Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, and Desmond Ridder as the other quarterbacks, and now they've got Carr coming in with something to prove. I think he just puts them over the top. This division is probably the worst in football, so I don't think they're going to have to do anything credible. I'm not a big Dennis Allen fan. I mean, they had a lot of changeover on the defensive side of the football, and you hope to think that they can still do it. But I'll tell you what, Chris Olave is an absolute beast. I think he'll be one of the top receivers in football this year. I love getting Williams there in the backfield. I think he'll be the guy that it'll get more carries. They'll still mix Kamara.
I wanted to take him in our fantasy draft last night, but he went pick right before me or right after me. I was hoping he'd come back around to me in the swing.
I think he's a sleeper, and I mean, he's just a goal line stud, which is another thing that is big. So yeah, I'm going to jump on the Saints, the Saints to win this. But you mentioned, I was doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, what team that's not one of the favorites can I pick and feel pretty good about their opportunity to win the division? I think the Chargers are going to be really good, but I'm not going against the Chiefs. No. They seem to win it every year. I think that would be dumb. I thought about the Seahawks at plus 220. But I think the Niners are just on another level, and we'll see whether Geno Smith can back up this season after the one that he had last year. So it did come down to 2 teams, Tennessee and Miami. And I went through the Tennessee schedule and decided for the lock shop, I'm going to throw out the Miami Dolphins in an uber competitive AFC East. I think the Jets are going to be better for sure. I think the New England Patriots are probably going to have a long season. Not that they're a terrible team, but they're just going to be just behind the 8 ball. And I mean, unless they can win their home games in their division, I don't think that they're going to be in the mix. But the Bills have an absolutely murderous schedule. And I think the door is wide open for one of these other teams to jump up and make things happen. And listen, I know everyone's all hyped for Aaron Rodgers to be coming in with the New York Jets, but I really think the Miami Dolphins have more talent on that team, have a more innovative coach that can get the most out of his athletes on the offensive side of the football. We'll see if Nate Hackett can get back together with the Rodgers and make things happen for the Jets. But at plus 320, I love the value of Miami to win this division. I think it probably comes down to week 17 and 18. Probably a couple of key head-to-head divisional matchups end up being the difference in this. But when you see what Miami was able to do in those divisional games last year against Buffalo, who was really one of the best teams in the NFL, I think that they are ready to go. And again, later on the year, they'll get Jalen Ramsey back. That'll be nice. That'll be a bonus. But to me, as long as Tua stays healthy, and again, that's a big
That's a
if.
tough one. That's a big if, man.
It is. If he's able to play all of the games, I think they've got the firepower to nip out the other two teams. And obviously at plus 320, I like it. So that was sort of my longer shot, bigger number, although I did think long and hard about the Titans. I was just going through their schedule last night, and it did I think they're going to have a real tough start to the season. So much like last year, teams are going to be playing catch up. But I like the Dolphins. I think Tyreek Hill's going to have another monster year. And then we'll see what happens with Jonathan Taylor, whether he ends up there. That could be a big addition to that club if they're able to make that happen.
Especially for your fantasy team after last night's draft.
Who would you have taken?
Who
would you have taken in that spot? I kept 3 receivers, and then I was at 10, and all the good running backs had been gone. I'm out on Najee Harris. Frankly, I'm pretty out on Jonathan Taylor too, considering the situation. And I ended up taking Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's going to have an absolutely monster year. But I figured, what the hell? I'm going to take the best player I can right now. And then it came down to it, and I think I sort of regretted this one after I made it. I took Taylor over Mixon. I think the ceiling for Taylor is higher if he gets into a good spot and he doesn't miss any games. Mixon certainly would have, I think, been the safer pick, but I guess we'll see what happens.
That's a tough spot to be in. I was in an interesting spot because we're in a league together with Jamie Thomas. We did a draft last night. You guys were all in person, right? Were you guys all there?
Most of us were. Yeah, most of us were.
Yeah. So I was drafted online. I had the first pick and the 4th pick in this draft. And I know Christian McCaffrey. So basically we can keep 3 guys if we want, but you can't keep first rounders. First rounders go back in. So McCaffrey had gone first overall 3 years in a row. And I was sitting there, and I was sitting in that 4 spot, and I was fine with McCaffrey, Eckler, or Bijan Robinson. So I was just like, you know what? I might as well take Kelsey, and then I'll just take whichever one of those running backs is left for me at 4, right? And I have Ramondre Stevenson as a running back that I kept, and I kept T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle, and I had some extra picks early in the draft. So I usually don't go Travis Kelsey early, but I like my team with Travis Kelsey at tight end, buddy. I decided to pull the trigger on it and then just deal with I thought maybe Eckler might be there, but I was fine with Robinson as well.
Yeah, well, if you've got any good running backs, hit me up because
no, I don't. I've only got 2. I completely punted the position after that.
I had to get I took Cam Akers, who was apparently he was going to be cut last year, and then all of a sudden he's back and he's good. But I mean, I don't trust him at all. Got James Cook, and then I got Harris as well from the Bills.
James Cook's not bad. James Cook could be good.
I think he could be good. It's a half PPR league as well, so it could be good. But I mean, every night it's going to be a different fantasy conundrum for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
can't wait.
Bring it on, which is a good segue into
it is
some over-unders for the bid. And let's talk about Christian McCaffrey because I was looking at his numbers after being traded from the Panthers to the 49ers. And he had almost 850 yards rushing in just the games that he was with San Francisco last year. I think especially with their quarterback situation, he is going to be the absolute centerpiece of that offense. It might take away a little bit from Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and even George Kittle. But I do think that with that line too, they will run the ball. They won't probably be as dependent on the screen passes like the Carolina Panthers were. So to me, this was an easy over. Again, asterisks, as long as these guys can stay healthy. My under is Najee Harris. I'm fading Najee. Najee was there. I could have picked him. I wanted nothing to do with him in fantasy last night. To be perfectly honest, I think Jaylen Warren might be better than Najee Harris.
Oh boy.
And I think that if anything, what we're going to see is that incredible workload that Najee had the last couple years is going to be hacked into big time by Warren. So, I mean, he was just over 1,000 yards last year. He was 1,200 in the first year, but he had over 300 carries. I don't think that's happening again. And I think Pittsburgh will be better off for it. I think they'll be a little bit more, they'll diversify the offense a bit more. And obviously, Kenny Pickett's got another year under his belt, and I think they'll throw the football more. So I'm hard fade on Najee Harris, under 950, even if he plays every game. I think they're realizing that they've got more impactful players right now that they can get the football into their hands. And I think that's not going to be a good thing for Najee. And then Tony Pollard. And it's funny, we're sitting here, CMC is the number one guy in fantasy, and Tony Pollard's 975. Tony Pollard's a keeper in most leagues because a lot of guys took him really late, and now he's the guy in Dallas. I think he has a monster season. Again, if he stays healthy, he is going to be finally the man. And he was way more productive than Zeke was last year, if you ask me, when he was in. I think he breezes to 1,000-yard season, if not far more. I think Tony Pollard probably ends up amongst the top 5 rushers in the entire NFL this year. Very high on Tony Pollard. And again, the overs are always dangerous because one nick or a guy misses something for 3 or 4 weeks and you're screwed. But I think these numbers are low enough that I'm pretty confident on both McCaffrey and Pollard hitting those overs, but I want no part of Najee Harris.
I was wondering when I was putting these into the graphics, we're on 5 overs. And one of the things we say all the time is like, just hammer some future season-long unders. And here we are on the overs. And I guess that's why they get these numbers out there. You're like, oh, that's way too good. I got to get on it. Like Nick Chubb, for example. I'm on Nick Chubb over 1,250 yards. No Kareem Hunt anymore in the picture there. And he had over 1,500 rushing yards last season. So we know what this guy is capable of if he's able to stay healthy. He has been relatively healthy his career. I don't know why, but Nick Chubb to me still seems to fly under the radar a little bit. I think it's probably because from a fantasy perspective, he hasn't caught a lot of balls, so we just don't talk about him as much. But Nick Chubb over 1,250 yards. I really like that. I'm intrigued by Deshaun Watson not coming in midway through the season, not being rusty. What will that offense be able to do, and how many great opportunities will there be here for Nick Chubb? So I'm going to get on Nick Chubb over 1,250. Miles Sanders, this one doesn't technically add up to me. I guess maybe shitty team, might not be able to do much offensively, but he had over 1,200 yards last year on a team that kind of mixed in a few different pieces at running back as well. So I look at it, and I know he was a little banged up. I think he was dealing with a groin, but he's back at practice now. They've got a couple of other guys there, but I think he's going to be the focal point of their offense. And Miles Sanders over 900 yards, I really like. Sanders is also a guy that I'm loving getting in like this. Like if I don't take a running back in the first 5 rounds of a fantasy draft and Miles Sanders is sitting there in the 6th round, I love it. Their offensive line last year, after CMC moved on, actually made Chuba Hubbard and Foreman look okay. So I think Sanders is going to do just fine in this offense.
I'll say this. I'm a fan of Miles Sanders, but that offensive line scares the living shit out of me. I mean, poor Bryce Young. And I mean, the combination of a rookie quarterback, which could be good for the amount of touches. That could be
good for him.
And the amount they rely on him.
Yeah.
But they're going to need to make a block or two. And that to me is the big question. And I mean, Sanders is almost secondary for the team to Bryce Young and how he's able to, get on as, a regular NFL starter right now. And, there's going to be some ups and downs. Sanders certainly has the talent. And I mean, the focus of this team is certainly going to be protection. And the best way to protect a quarterback is establish the run. And I think they will try to do that. I guess the big question, they will do that. Speaking of quarterbacks, you're firing again on Fields.
Well, I pulled the trigger on him in the draft last night too. I went with that DJ Moore, Justin Fields stack. So we'll see. But look, Justin Fields, over 1,100 yards rushing last year. Yes, they brought in DJ Moore. They added Claypool last year. But this is just who he is, right? Will they throw the ball a little bit more than last year? I'm sure they want to. But when you're as good at running the ball as he is, they'd be crazy to try to make him do that less often. So for me, 1,100 last year, I thought this number would probably be at least 850-ish. I saw it at 800, decided to hop on it as well. Justin Fields continued to run the ball and be an absolute dynamic fantasy quarterback this year with those rushing yards. I like this one. It's actually probably of all the three picks, the one I'm most confident in.
I'm just trying to think back to the draft last night. Did you pick Fields over Lamar?
Yes, I did. I did.
That was because, we're looking at the thing, and there's those two guys, and then there was a big drop to Deshaun, who people were – I mean, I couldn't believe how late he went. But, yeah.
Now, if you could have told me I could have got Deshaun where Deshaun went, I probably would have waited because I was surprised he went – I knew Lamar went the next pick after Justin Fields or something like that.
Very quickly, very quickly.
But look. Lamar has some hard yards on him already. Justin Fields doesn't yet. Plus, I've had Lamar in fantasy the last couple of years, and he's been disappointing. So I decided to mix it up and go with Justin Fields and a Chicago team that might take a small step. So
at least
I really like the over 800.
At least for Lamar, he's got his contract, and there's no reason to sit out. There's no reason to not do anything other than try and go and help your team win football games right now. And that worried me. I mean, I think that whole contract situation completely sunk the Ravens season last year. It's part of the reason why I'm high on them and think that they can win this division this year, is that they'll have a focused quarterback going into a season where he is not worried about getting injured and, and obviously he just shut it down for that last little bit and didn't play. So that'll be good. I'm still looking. If anyone knows any alt lines on Cardinals unders, let me know. I need it. I'd love to get an under 3 somewhere, maybe an under 2.5. They're 18-1 to go winless for the entire season. That is definitely not off the table. How would that be? Brand new GM, brand new head coach, 0-17.
Oh, man.
That's the operation. That's the mission for this team this year.
Mission accomplished. Congratulations on all your success, Arizona. Congratulations on all your success. All right, so here's where we are at for our Futures episode. We'll obviously bang this one out today. We'll have another NFL Futures episode for you tomorrow. We're going to be diving in some quarterback props and some receiving props tomorrow. Next Tuesday, we'll get to some league award winners. That'll be good. And then Wednesday's final show, best bets, obviously, on winning the Super Bowl, AFC, NFC championships. And then next Thursday, we will be talking Kansas City and Detroit in the Lock Shop Bowl, which should be amazing. We look forward to that. NFL Futures episode tomorrow. And then obviously CFL Week 12, huge weekend in the Canadian Football League with Labor Day coming. A battle for fourth in the West between the Elks and the Stampeders. And then, I'll be in Regina for that game, and then in Winnipeg for the Banjo Bowl the following week. So good times as far as football goes, buddy.
Well, I'm looking forward to the start of EST next week, Edmonton Sports Talk, and having the Lock Shop on there. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week at the Banjo Bowl here in Winnipeg, and don't be surprised if you might get a text. Where are you in Regina on the weekend? For
what?
Well, I just realizing it's Labor Day weekend. I never planned this, and I was just looking. Oh, hotels. Yes, there are some rooms. So, anyways, I'll be speaking with some of the fellas, and there might be a last minute trip down to see the Bombers lay a beat down on the Riders as we've done for the last little while. It doesn't get much better than that.
All right. Well, maybe I'll see you this weekend, but I'll definitely talk to you tomorrow, buddy. See you later.
You got it, pal.